Right, what is up? I don't think anyone expected to see me back again, but you know, with the shelter in place thing, I've gotten through like 5 different TV shows, and then I started gaming, which, like online gaming, which I never do. And then I started watching Twitch streams, so I'm just really hitting a low point. The last video I did, or the only video I did, was the books that I read in spring of 2019. And I did film a video that summer that like talked about all the books that I'd read in summer 2019, but I was trying to edit it, and it was basically uneditable because I had no idea what I was saying about any of these books. I couldn't remember a single thing about them. So I figured I'll refilm that, because if I couldn't remember what I'd read that summer right after it happened, obviously I'm going to remember like a year later. So here we are. I did take notes on these books, but they're kind of shitty. So, first book I read in summer of 2019 was Speak, the graphic novel. Oh. Whee! This is very awkward. It's by Laurie Halse Anderson, and it's illustrated by Emily Carroll. So this is a graphic novel version of a book that already exists. It's about a girl named Melinda who was raped by an upperclassman at a party right before she started high school. And so she goes into high school without any friends. Nobody knows what happened to her. All they know is that she was the girl who called the cops at the party, and so she's an outcast. She has no friends, and she slowly starts to like isolate from her friends, from her family, from her classmates. And the book kind of just follows her downward spiral as well as her healing process as she kind of finds comfort in her artwork. And I thought this was a really good idea to turn into a graphic novel. First of all, because art is such a big part of this book, but also because it's just really impactful. I think in graphic novel form, there are like emotions that she has, and the way that the artist illustrated them really adds to the experience. Overall, it was a really good book. I enjoyed the original book when I read it back in middle school, and it had like a huge impact on me throughout middle school and high school. And so it was really nice to be able to read it in like a different form and enjoy the content all over again. So that was the first one. The next thing that I read this summer was, what's it called? Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life, and this was written and illustrated by Brian Lee O'Malley. It's a graphic novel as well. This one I didn't understand as much. Basically, there's this guy named Scott, and either he's new at the school or his love interest, Ramona Flowers, is new at the school. I don't remember who. And so he wants to get with her, but she has all these exes that he has to fight first. So the first one is the first fight. The first graphic novel volume is the first fight. And it was interesting and it was funny, but I didn't understand the plot progression. I don't know if my copy was missing pages, which would be weird because it was an online, like digital copy. But I just wasn't confused. I didn't understand how the plot was advancing. So that was confusing. I might continue on with the series. I heard there's a movie that's pretty good, so I might just read that instead. But yeah, like I liked the artwork, and it was a cute concept. I just was having a hard time following why all these crazy things were happening, which maybe is just how graphic novels work. Like, it's not something that I consume a lot, so maybe I just need to get more used to the medium. So the third book that I read that summer was The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, and it was narrated by Christian Coulson, who plays Tom Riddle in The Chamber of Secrets. This book is about a guy named Monty. It's historical fiction, first of all. It's about a guy named Monty who is going on a grand tour of Europe with his best friend Percy and his sister Felicity. Monty's sister is Felicity, not Percy's sister. Percy, I don't think Percy had a sister. I think he was an only child. But anyways, so Monty, Percy, and Felicity are going on a grand tour of Europe, and it's basically like this one-year trip they get to do before they have to come back and like go on with life's responsibilities. And Monty is secretly in love with his best friend, Percy. He's also kind of a dick. He's not the nicest character at the beginning of the book, and I didn't really enjoy reading from his perspective for the longest time, even though there was a lot going on with him that kind of contributed to the way he was. I still just wasn't very sympathetic, but you know, that's more of a me thing than a character thing, maybe. I don't know, I mean, like, I get that a lot of the way he was acting was because he was like in love with Percy, and like, I get it. We've all been there. We've all had feelings for Percy. But it's just, basically, he does some stuff. He like drinks a lot. He like gambles. He sleeps around. They get in trouble. Shenanigans ensue. I think he stole something, and that was like the main plot because now people were after them. I thought the best part of the story had nothing to do with Monty and Percy. It was actually Felicity. She is, by the way, this is like the 1700s or 1800s, and she really wants to study medicine, but she cannot because she's a woman, whatever. And so she's like while Monty and Percy are getting in trouble, Felicity is like off at night, sneaking off to medical lectures. And I know that there is a spin-off of this book called The Lady's Guide to something but petticoats, and that's based off Felicity. So I feel like I would read that, but this one was just whatever. 3 stars, let's say. After that, I listened to Stormfront by Jim Butcher, which is narrated by James Marsters, who plays Spike on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The Dresden Files series is basically about a wizard named Harry Dresden who lives in Chicago, and he works sometimes with Chicago PD or by himself or with other people to solve all these magical mysteries. I don't remember the specifics of this particular book. I've since then read like at least 3 or 4 more Dresden Files books, and I read this one last summer, but I believe this one had to do with vampires. Maybe. I think the appeal of the Dresden Files books is that Harry Dresden as a character is so snarky and witty and just really funny to read or to listen to, because James Marsters, first of all, does an incredible job kind of embodying Harry Dresden and making you feel like you're listening to Harry talk to you. And Harry himself is extremely entertaining. It's a really fun read. It was very fast-paced, and I highly recommend it, especially because I think the first 3 books or so are kind of formulaic, but I'm on the 4th one right now, and it seems like they're just kind of expanding this world way past what I expected the Dresden Files to be. I thought it was just going to be like every single book is a new, some kind of magical mystery, but it seems like they're really kind of diving into the lore of the world. There's like stuff about the White Council, how the magic works in this world, so it's like really interesting, and I highly recommend it. The next thing that I read, and I think that, let me scroll real quick. Actually, no, I read a lot of good books over the summer. I was about to say this was my favorite, but I'm looking at it, and at least 5 of these books I would probably say were my favorites, and I only read like 7 things. So, the next book that I read was The Rhythmatist by Brandon Sanderson. I listened to the audiobook, which is narrated by Michael Kramer, who is a fantastic audiobook narrator. He also, I think he does the Mistborn series. He narrates the Wheel of Time series, which, spoiler alert, I've started listening to as well. But The Rhythmatist is about it's kind of America if like magic systems had been introduced early on. And the magic system of this book is called Rhythmatics. It's basically when, I'm gonna put that down. It's basically when people draw like 2D figures and lines, and these things come to life. They're called chalklings. And there's these wild chalklings at the border that are like trying to get in, and there are rhythmatists at like the border defending against that. But rhythmatics is also just studied as an academic field. So there's this kid called Joel who goes to a school that has a rhythmatics school attached. Not every single person has the power to practice rhythmatics, but Joel really wants to, but he missed his initiation, so he doesn't technically know if he would have been able to or not. But he really, really is in love with rhythmatics, and he like studies it on his own time, and he ends up going to a professor and asking to be a student assistant. And it's going well for a while, and then all of a sudden students start disappearing from the rhythmatics school, and it seems like there's wild chalklings behind it, and nobody knows how they're getting into the school. So Joel ends up teaming up with this girl named Melody, who is a rhythmatic student, but she's like really behind. And Melody is one of the craziest characters that I've read in a long time. She's just so quirky and insane, and she loves unicorns, and she's kind of in her own world all the time. And she was just really fun to read. And she just seems like a great friend. So Joel and Melody and the professor are all teaming up trying to figure out what's happening to all these students. One thing I will say is that as much as I love the audiobook, the actual physical copy has all these rhythmatics drawings in them, especially at the beginning of each chapter. And so it shows you a little bit about the magic system. In the audiobook, it'll like tell you that there's a line, but you can't actually see the line, which was a problem, but it's fine. I have a physical copy. Also, if you do listen to the audiobook, all of the rhythmatics drawings are on Brandon Sanderson's website. So it's not a problem at all. And like, again, Michael Kramer is a great narrator, so whatever. Listen to it, read it, doesn't matter. But I think it is really fun to be able to see the drawings. I really like this book, and I remember after I finished it, I really wanted to like enter an arithmetics tournament and like actually study the magic system that he had created. So it's, I don't know, I thought it was fun and exciting. And yeah. The other graphic novel that I read last summer was The Boys by Garth Ennis. So I read volume 1, which was the name of the game. This graphic novel has an Amazon show based on it. So season 1 of The Boys on Amazon Prime also follows volume 1 of the graphic novels. And so basically the premise of this story is that superheroes exist in our world and they're idolized in society. And there's 2 main storylines that are being followed. So storyline A, there's this man named Huey who was like walking with his girlfriend Robin, and A-Train, which is one of the superheroes, he, I guess would be kind of equivalent to the Flash. He was like trying to take down a villain, or I don't remember what he was doing. He could have just been messing around, but he kind of just like crashes through Robin and causes Robin's untimely death. And so Huey is just distraught, and he sets out to get revenge, and he ends up working with this vigilante group, either called the Boys, or I don't know if they have a name. I think they were called the Boys, but whatever. It's this vigilante group that he starts working with to bring down the superheroes. So storyline B follows Starlight, who is this really like sweet kind of religious girl who is a superhero in a junior league, but she wants to join the Seven, which is the big superhero league. It's kind of like the equivalent of the Justice League. And so she ends up getting recruited. She's really excited, but as she joins and spends more time with the Seven, she realizes that the reality doesn't really match up to what she's expected, and there's like a lot of exploitation of people going on. There's just like a lot of stuff going down behind the scenes. So that's kind of the 2 storylines that at least the first volume followed. I enjoyed this, I think, more than the Amazon show, and the Amazon show was amazing. But I think I enjoyed this one more just because there are certain things that happened in the graphic novel that they couldn't depict the same way in the show, but I think it really added a lot to the plot. So yeah. Cool. So the last thing I read this summer was Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, and it was narrated by John Lindstrom. So this story is basically about, and I'm gonna say some stuff, it's not spoilers, not spoilers, not spoilers. This was in the first 10 minutes, okay? So like, don't complain about spoilers. So it follows this man named Jason, who is a community college professor teaching physics, and one day he finds out that his old college roommate, I think, won this huge prestigious prize in physics. So he goes to celebrate with him, and on the walk home, Jason is kidnapped and basically drugged, taken to a location, and when he wakes up, he's in a lab surrounded by a bunch of people, and all of them are really excited to see him back, and they say that he's been missing forever, and they're asking where he's gone. And Jason has no idea what's going on, and all he knows is he wants to get back to his wife and kid. And the story takes some crazy turns that I did not expect. This is a science fiction book. I don't want to get into what concepts it explores because I think that it's really interesting to go into it blind, but I remember that when I listened to this book, usually when I listen to audiobooks, I like go to work, listen to it, and then I'll listen to them when I'm walking, but I don't like just sit there and listen to audiobooks. But with this one, I was so distraught. I had to know what was happening next. I was just like so hooked that I just came home from work and I sat in bed for 4 hours. Maybe not 4 hours because the book is 8 hours long. I think I sat in bed for like 3 hours and just listened to the rest of the book, and I could not get up until I was done. And then I texted all my friends, and none of you listened to the book or read the book. But still, if any of you do end up reading it, I would love to hear your thoughts. So yeah, that's everything I read this summer. Cool. I have a couple other video ideas planned. Maybe they'll happen, maybe they won't. We will see. Until then, have a good day, and yeah. Okay.